Welcome to this presentation of an analysis of how humans have developed over the last 300,000 years. And I have taken the 300,000 years because I believe we as a species have been existing for the last 300,000 years. So humans have existed as a species called Homo sapiens for the last 300,000 years. And I'm trying to figure out, taking the base year as 2025, of what has happened over the last 300,000 years. So perhaps when the humans became a species as sapiens and started living, I have marked that as year zero. And I've taken 99,000 years from when we started living as a species as the first instance. The second instance is another 99,000 years, which brings us to 198,000 years of human existence as a species. And then another 99,000 years brings us to 297,000 years of us as a species. And this last period, 3,000 years, brings us to 300,000 years to year 2025, since we have started living as a species. Now, I've taken one generation as around 30 years. This, I think, is an overestimation because previously people would have children at a much younger age, around 20, or perhaps maximum 25 would be the upper limit. And my estimation is based on today's society. So I've taken it as a overestimation, which gives us lesser number of generations. And for the first 99,000 years, we would have perhaps 3,300 generations if we take 30 years as the age of one generation. It would have been much more, but for estimation, I've taken the first 3,300 generations. And after the 3,301st human generation, again, you had another 3,300 generation, bring us to the first 6,600 human generations till we were born. And from the 6,601st human generation till uh, another 99,000 years, which brings us to 297,000 years of humans living as a species. And from 297,000, which is the 9,901st human generation, we have continued. And in between, we had a time when we had Christ. I am using that as a marker to basically talk about the scales of time we have been developing as a species. And I would divide it into two parts: BC, which is all the period before Christ was born, and after Christ was born. So I'm going to take that as a marker to show how short our period has been till today. And then, if you look further, what did we do for the first 3,300 generations? Perhaps we lived as animals and found food and water to survive, and we protected our children and cohabitants from animals or other tribes or people we didn't know, and we started forming groups of societies living together. After which, for the next another 3,300 generation, till we were the first 6,600 generation, we had the same lifestyle of finding shelter and sustainable food and building a sustainable life. Perhaps we started building shelters for ourselves, started planting um, land for food, or perhaps starting having associations with animals. And then after the 6,600 generation, perhaps we started building societies. Perhaps we started owning farmlands, owning uh, animals and so on, using animals and so on. And a big change happened, which would be owning property and material. So we started defining, this is my property, this is what I control. And the control aspect is something which defines human society today. And this gave rise to business, building a society which trades within itself and with other societies and so on. And that has been the basis of human existence. Now, let us look at the time from Christ to year 2025. So that is like some 2000 years of human existence. And if we look at Christ as the marker, after Christ era, we still continued with forming kingdoms and areas of control. So we look at all battles which have taken place till today, all dominations which have happened, the crusades, the uh, world wars, and everything. And that has been uh, what we have been doing, looking at technologies to dominate using horses, elephants, and uh, material to having gunpowder, which was then used to dominate people and dominate societies. And if we look from the year 1900 till today, so I'm basically taking at the human development from this till 2025. We look at what has happened is the industrial era happened with the steam engines, locomotives, then the airplane came and so on. And here again, we have sought to look for technologies to dominate, building dynamites, tanks, aircrafts, and the final culmination was the atom bomb used in 1945 in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. And that basically defines how people have used technologies, how human development has happened. And we look today from the year 1991 to 2025, and here I'll change the subject a bit to the internet. And that is where the internet existence started happening from year 1991 to year 2025. And I look at what the development happened. And in year 1993, just like humans started forming associations with their land, with other animals and other societies and forming societies, we basically had the Mosaic web browser to communicate. And that is what the development of the internet happened. And I remember my first desktop, which I bought in the year 1998, which was with a modem, with a telephone modem you could connect to the internet. And the internet was also basic that time, but that was what it was. And with the year 2000, we started seeing companies like Google. So before 1998, I had to write down any website I visited on a piece of paper on my desk and keep it there. So the next time I logged into the internet, I would check that web address and then type it on my desktop and go to that site. But with Google, information started becoming organized. And if you look at the way humans developed, first it was just survival living and just looking at things and feeding your stomach and the basic necessities. But then slowly you started to organize society. And we find the same thing happening with the internet. With Google, information organization became much easier. It became a tool to organize. And then in 2004 to 2007, you had companies like Facebook and LinkedIn come up where you found a place to have your virtual identity. So that is how organization or data will be developed on the internet. And soon you will come to a a time when we will have virtual ownership. And I believe that time will start now, where you start having your ownership on the internet, and ownership of data will not go to freemium companies like Google or Facebook, but you will get your share in your data. So that is what we have actually mapped here. So I have just put here another development which happened in 2018 is GDPR and data regulations were introduced. And what is the purpose? Why are you going to use the data? What are you doing with the data? So data becomes kind of a monetary tool which will develop further into a concept of virtual ownership that I believe will start coming in soon. There's another change which I definitely want to point out, and we looked at people which were there. And previously, we used to have a take it, a make it, a use it, and throw. So basically, this was our cycle with material. So you take material, you mine material, you make something out of it, you use it for 1 to 50 years, and then throw it, it could be decompose in 1 to 20 years, or for infinite time it would be there lying in the landfill and so on. But I think that model will also start to change to something where you take it, make it, and use it will be there. But once you throw it, you'll have two more components added: refurbish and recycle. So basically, you'll have some kind of a green cycle coming up where you don't just throw material and it gets forgotten, but you either refurbish it and reuse it, or you recycle it. And this reverse cycle will start to come up in the future. So I believe these are some of the changes we believe will start happening soon. And the throw refurbish will take the next 1 to 20 years to develop. And once that happens, our the way of using things will be very different to how we have used in the past. Yeah. Thank you.